Jake Holloway sat in the small cockpit of his old cargo ship, the Star Runner. Outside, the endless black of space stretched in every direction, but Jake didn't look at the stars. His eyes were tired, and his mind was heavy with loneliness. The Star Runner was docked at Orbital Station Zetnine, a quiet place near a cold mining moon. This was his home, or at least the closest thing he had to a home. I'd been flying cargo for years, bringing supplies from one world to another. Nothing exciting ever happened here, just routine deliveries and lonely nights. Jake wanted only one thing: peace. He yawned, grabbed a cup of synth coffee, and headed toward the small human hub in the station. The hum of machines and quiet chatter were the only sounds as he walked. Down the metal corridor toward Dock 12, something unusual caught his eye. A tall figure stood alone near the docking bay entrance. She was wrapped in long, flowing robes that shimmered softly, like the stars themselves. Her skin had a faint glow, and her eyes were deep and kind. Jake stopped. The figure looked directly at him. "Excuse me?" she said softly, her voice smooth like music. "Are you Jake Holloway?" Jake nodded slowly, unsure. "Yeah, who wants to know?" The figure smiled gently and stepped closer. "My name is Sarai. I've come to make you an offer. A very special offer." Jake's eyebrows rose. "An offer? What kind of offer?" Sarai looked around carefully, then whispered, "All I ask of you is to comfort my child. That is all." Jake blinked. "Comfort your child? What does that mean?" Sarai reached behind her and pulled a small cradle from under her robes. It glowed with soft blue light. In the cradle was a tiny baby, wrapped in a silver blanket. Jake's mouth went dry. The baby was strange, not like any child he had seen before. Its skin shimmered softly and its eyes were closed. The baby started to cry, but the sound was not like a normal baby's cry. It was soft, almost like a song, but it seemed to reach inside Jake's mind. He put his hand gently on the cradle. The cry shook his chest. He remembered things he had tried to forget: his childhood home on Earth, the laughter of his sister, the gentle smile of a woman he once loved. Sarai watched him quietly. "The child is a sympathetic," she said softly. "A rare being that survives through emotion. It needs your comfort to live." Jake looked at her, confused and a little afraid. "Why me?" "Because you still have a heart that feels deeply. Others have lost it. You have hope." Jake stared at the baby's glowing face. The tears in the child's eyes seemed real. He took a deep breath. "All right," he said finally. "I'll try." Sarai smiled and nodded. "Thank you, Jake. That is all I ask." Jake took the cradle carefully and carried it to his small living pod on the station. The baby's crying grew softer as he sang old Earth lullabies from his memory. The soft music and Jake's calm voice seemed to calm the child. As the night passed, Jake sat quietly, holding the cradle. He realized this strange child was more than a baby. It was a key, maybe, even a bridge to something much bigger than himself. Outside his window, the stars twinkled. Inside, a lonely pilot was beginning to feel something new: a connection, a purpose, and maybe even hope. The soft glow of the baby's cradle filled Jake's small living pod with a gentle blue light. Outside, the vastness of space was silent and cold, but inside, warmth and strange feelings grew. Jake looked down at the baby, who was no longer crying, but watching him with deep, curious eyes. The child blinked slowly, and Jake felt a strange connection, a bond that went beyond anything he had ever known. "Sarai said you're called a sympathetic," Jake whispered. "What does that mean?" Baby cooed softly, and Jake smiled. He sat back in his worn chair and closed his eyes for a moment. Suddenly, memories rushed in, like a flood breaking through a dam. He remembered the small town on Earth where he grew up, the smell of rain on dry soil, the laughter of his little sister playing outside their house. He saw his mother's face, smiling softly, and the way his father used to tell stories by the fire. But then, his memories turned darker the day his sister disappeared in a storm. The long years of loneliness after that, the many nights spent flying cargo alone in the cold vastness of space. The baby's cry no. Its song had unlocked something deep inside him. Jake opened his eyes and looked at the child again. "How do you do that?" he asked quietly. Just then, Sarai's voice came through the small communicator Jake kept in his pocket. "Jake," she said gently, "the sympathixes are a rare species. They are born not just to live, but to connect. They feel the emotions of those around them. They can share memories and feelings." Jake swallowed hard. "So, this baby feels everything I feel." "Yes," Sarai replied, "and you feel the same. That is why the bond is so strong." Jake glanced at the baby. Again, the child reached out a tiny hand and touched his cheek. The touch was warm and soft, like a gentle breeze. Suddenly, Jake was flooded with more memories this time. Memories that were not his own. He saw distant planets covered in blue forests, cities made of crystal light, and beings who lived in harmony with each other and the stars. He saw laughter, joy, sorrow, and hope. Jake blinked and looked at the baby in wonder. "How can you hold all this inside you?" he asked. Sarai's voice came again, softer this time. The sympathics carry the history of their people in their hearts. But they need love and comfort to survive. Without it, their memories fade and their light dims. Jake felt a pang in his chest. The thought of losing this child, or the light inside it, was unbearable. He stood up and walked to the small window of his pod. Outside, the mining moon spun slowly, its surface cold and gray. He sighed. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted aloud. "I'm just a pilot. I'm not a caretaker." The baby reached out again and touched his hand. This time, Jake felt a wave of calm wash over him. Sarai's voice spoke once more, steady and kind. "You don't have to be perfect, Jake. You only have to be present, to care, to feel." Jake sat back down and looked at the baby's glowing face. He began to hum a quiet tune, an old Earth song his mother used to sing. The baby's eyes grew heavy. Soon it was sleeping peacefully. As the night passed, Jake felt the baby's warmth beside him. For the first time in a long time, he did not feel alone. The next morning, Jake woke to find the baby staring at him with bright, curious eyes. He smiled and gently picked up the cradle. Sarai's message came through again, this time with news. "Jake, the Galactic Council will be arriving soon. They know about the sympathics and want to study them." Jake frowned. "Study? You mean take the baby away?" "Possibly. They are afraid of what they do not understand. But you are the child's protector now." Jake looked down at the baby, who cooed softly, reaching for his finger. "I'll protect you," Jake promised. Sarai's voice was filled with quiet hope. "You have already begun the bond, Jake. With time, you will unlock more of the gift this child carries." Jake sat back and looked out the window again. He did not know what the future held. But one thing was clear. His life was changing forever, and all because he had comforted a baby. The hum of the space station grew louder as the Galactic Council's delegation arrived. News of the sympathetic child spread quickly, stirring curiosity, fear, and hope in equal measure. Jake Holloway felt the weight of it all resting heavily on his shoulders. He sat alone in his pod, the baby whom he now called Luma resting quietly in the glowing cradle beside him. Luma's eyes opened slowly and met Jake's with a gentle warmth that seemed to shine through the soft blue light. "Jake." Sarai's voice came through the communicator again, calm but urgent. "The council will demand answers. They fear what they do not understand. You must decide soon." Jake swallowed hard. "Decide what?" He looked down at Luma, who reached a tiny hand toward his face. The bond between them had grown stronger every day. Jake could feel her emotions like a gentle current flowing inside him: joy, curiosity, even sadness. He thought about the offer Sarai had made when she first appeared at Dock 12. Comfort her baby, and he would receive something beyond value. At the time, it seemed simpler favor for a reward. Now it felt like a choice that could change everything. Jake stood and paced his small room. He wasn't a hero or a diplomat. He was a cargo pilot, used to running away from trouble, not facing it head-on, but Luma's gentle presence had opened a new part of him, part that wanted to care, to protect, to connect. Sarai's message echoed in his mind. You have a heart that feels deeply. That is why you were chosen. Jake's thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on his door. He opened it cautiously. 2 figures stood outside the council's representatives. They were tall, elegant beings with pale skin and shimmering robes, their faces serene but unreadable. We have come to discuss the sympathetic child, one said in perfect common tongue. It is our duty to ensure her safety and to understand her nature. Jake nodded slowly. She's safe with me. I'm her guardian. The representative's eyes softened slightly. We do not doubt your intentions, Mr. Holloway, but this child represents a species nearly extinct. The council must decide what is best for her and for all sentient life. Jake felt a knot in his stomach. He wanted to protect Luma, but he also wanted to do what was right. That night, Jake sat with Luma in his arms. The baby cooed softly, her tiny fingers curling around his thumb. Luma, Jake whispered, I don't know what to do. The council takes you away. I don't know if I can bear it. Luma's eyes met his, shining with a depth beyond her years. Jake felt her emotions, trust, hope, and love. He took a deep breath and made a decision. The next morning, Jake walked to the council, meeting room Luma in her cradle beside him. The room was filled with beings from many worlds, their faces curious and cautious. Jake stood before them, his heart pounding. I am no diplomat, he began, but I have learned something important. This child is not just a species to study. She is a symbol of hope, of connection between us all. He looked down at Luma. She has taught me that we are not so different. That feelings, love, trust, karar, what bind us. A murmur spread through the room, Jake continued. If you take her away, you risk breaking that bond. But if you let her stay, if you let me help her grow, maybe we can build something new, a future where different species understand each other. Council members looked at each other, then back at Jake. After a long silence, the lead representative spoke. Your words carry weight. Mr. Holloway, the council will allow you to remain Luma's guardian, one condition. You will work with us to learn and share her gift. Jake nodded, relief flooding him. As they left, Sarai's voice came softly through the communicator. You have made the right choice, Jake. The bond you share is the key to the future. That night, as Jake watched Luma sleep, he felt something. New hope. Not just for himself, but for the galaxy. The baby who once only cried had become a bridge of light in the darkness. And Jake knew, whatever came next, he would face it with an open heart. The station buzzed softly with activity as Jake Holloway walked through its quiet halls, his gaze steady on the glowing cradle beside him. Luma, once a tiny, fragile baby, had changed. She now toddled carefully in his small living pod, her skin shimmering with a gentle light, her eyes bright with curiosity and wisdom far beyond her years. Jake smiled as Luma reached out her tiny hand to touch a floating HLA display. With a soft giggle, she made the shapes on the screen move, her laughter ringing clear and warm. You're learning fast, little one, Jake said softly. Luma's gaze met his, and Jake felt that same deep connection. The bond that tied their hearts and minds together, Sarai's earlier words, echoed in Jake's memory. Only you can help her grow into what she was meant to be, a bridge between worlds. But that was easier said than done. Across the station, whispers and rumors spread. The Galactic Council had arrived weeks ago and maintained a close watch on the situation. Some saw Luma as a miracle, a chance to heal old wounds between species. Others feared her power, worried what the emotional bond she carried might mean for galactic politics. One afternoon, a delegation from the council came to visit Jake. They entered his pod quietly, their faces serious but respectful. Jake, the lead envoy said, we are here to ensure Luma's safety and to learn from her. She represents a rare gift, but also a great responsibility. Jake nodded. I understand, and I want to protect her. But I want something more. I want her to be free, to choose her own path. The envoy studied Jake closely. That is why we ask you to cooperate with us. We want to help her grow safely. You will teach us what she shows you. Jake looked down at Luma, who reached out and placed a small hand on his cheek. The touch was warm, filling him with calm and strength. All right, Jake said, we'll do this together. Days turned into weeks, and Jake found himself teaching not just the council members, but others on the station. Luma's gift was unlike anything anyone had seen. She could sense the feelings of everyone around her: fear, hope, joy, sadness, and respond with comfort and understanding. When tensions rose, her presence calmed angry voices. When despair crept in, her gentle glow brought warmth and peace. One evening, as Jake sat with Luma in his lap, she spoke her first words. "Father," she said softly. Jake's breath caught. The word was simple, but heavy with meaning. "Luma," he whispered, "I'm here, always." Sarai's voice came again, this time through a delicate projection that appeared beside them. "You have done well, Jake. The bond is strong, and the child's gift grows. Together, you are changing the future." Jake smiled, feeling tears sting his eyes. The challenges were far from over, but he was no longer alone. He had Luma through her a chance to build something better. Outside the window, stars shimmered. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns. But here, in this small pod, a baby like no other was lighting the way. 1 year had passed since Jake Holloway first took the glowing cradle into his care. The quiet cargo pilot had transformed into something new: a father, a teacher, a symbol of hope. The station where Jake and Luma lived was no longer just a lonely outpost. It had become a gathering place for many species, all curious to see the child who carried the light of the sympathetic sand, the warmth of humanity. Jake stood on the observation deck, watching Luma play with a group of children from different planets. Their laughter echoed softly through the halls, a sound that warmed Jake's heart more than any cup of synth coffee ever had. Luma's skin glowed softly as she reached out to touch the hand of a small alien child with shimmering wings. The child giggled and leaned close. Jake smiled. This was the future he had never imagined, a future built not on weapons or power, but on trust, understanding, and love. He remembered the day Sarai had appeared, offering him a strange and unbelievable choice. "Comfort her, baby," she had said. And in return, he would receive something beyond value. Now, Jake understood. The gift was not gold or fame, was connection. The simple human touch that could heal wounds deeper than any technology. The Galactic Council representatives approached Jake quietly. "You have done more than we imagined," the lead envoy said. "Luma's gift is changing minds, healing old fears. You have shown the galaxy the power of empathy." Jake nodded. "She taught me. I only held her hand when she needed comfort. The rest was love." The envoy smiled and looked at the children playing. "This is just the beginning. With you as her guardian, the sympathics will thrive again." Jake looked at Luma, who turned and smiled at him, a smile full of hope and promise. As night fell outside the station's windows, Jake sat beside Luma. She leaned her glowing head against his shoulder. "Father," she said softly. "Yes, Luma." "Thank you?" Jake's eyes filled with tears. "No, thank you." He looked out at the stars once more. "All I had to do was comfort her baby," he whispered. "And in return, I got the universe."